Are you watching us live here at Human TV Africa? My name is Katom Kasa, your host for the Saturday show where we always meet and talk about issues that generally are neglected on social media platforms. Remember, Humanist TV Africa is registered as Humanist Media Africa. We are a charity organization registered to do work that promotes human rights, but also creates awareness, we inform, we empower, and of course, we do entertain in some of our shows. Now, each Saturday, we gather here with experts, human rights experts, consumer experts, and advocates who always volunteer their time to share with our members, our viewers, to empower them, to learn from them, but also to continue engaging. We want to thank so much our teams in Sierra Leone, Ghana, Zimbabwe, Zambia, Uganda, Kenya, Malawi, and others, where you share our live shows, and we are grateful that as we speak, our viewership is almost 7,000 per show. We are happy that you view the shows, and we want to encourage you to continue. Please view the shows, but also share them, but also subscribe to our YouTube channel to continue seeing this and more. Now, today we have our experts in-house experts in Mr. Kimera Henry, a consumer rights advocate and human rights defender in Uganda, and of course, Mr. Bernard Bambale, the same portfolio, consumer rights advocate, and of course, a human rights defender right there in Uganda. Mr. Kimera and Mr. Bambale, you are most welcome. Mr. Kimera, you're most welcome.
Thank you very much, Paul. It is always an honor. And also, it is now a culture with us that every Saturday we are with you. And I would like very, very much to thank the 7,000 plus consumers out there that have been watching us or who are watching us. And you are always welcome, and we look forward. So Constant is greatly honored to joining hands with the Humanist TV Africa to make sure that we add our voices to make your life better and you have a quality life. So it is a great honor, Paul, and we are very happy for your partnership, for always being here. So colleagues, as I'm saying hello to you, I also want to unpack what we are going to have on this series. This time we are having a discussion on fair digital finance services. So we need to call to action what is all about fair digital finance services. We will be going into details later, but these are series we are going to run for quite a while, because billions of you, just majority of you in Africa, globally, are using these digital financial services. So colleagues, we are starting a new product, and it is all about making your consumer life better and of quality. So it is a great honor having you today.
Thank you, Mr. Kimera, so much for always being with us and, of course, informing and educating our viewers. We are grateful. I always get feedback from Nigeria, Ghana, Sierra Leone, Kenya, Tanzania, wherever you have a branch where our shows are being shared. They are grateful to you and, of course, Mr. Bernard Bambale. Mr. Bambale, please share your introduction, your message with our viewers.
Thank you so much, Kato and Chimera. Thank you, colleagues, for always giving us the Saturday to speak out to our colleagues, the consumers. Of course, aware that the consumers form the biggest part of the economy. So everything that comes on board on market, it should be really pro-consumers. But the question we have always asked ourselves, how are consumers feeling about the products that are coming up? So many products come up to improve the life of consumers. So many products come on board to, solve some bit of challenges around the consumer life. but we need to also keep evaluating which one is working, which one is not working, and what are those challenges that consumers are facing out there, and how best can they prevent themselves from being victims of challenges that come along. And so today, I don't know whether I'm supposed to dive into the discussion of the day or whether I first hold on. Okay.
Go ahead, Mr. Bambari. Go ahead, please.
Okay, thank you so much. So I'm honored today that I'm going to introduce to us a new aspect that we are going to discuss. Of course, our previous series we've been looking at food safety, nutrition, and something like that. But now we are sure that for us to improve nutrition, for us to improve food safety, there are other enabling aspects that have come on board. And one of them has been around the digitalization of the finances. You cannot have safer food unless you procured it, or you must have bought something, or you must have had access to money to be able to buy a meal or nutritious and safe food. So now we are looking at where the world is going. There's a lot of technological advancements happening, and these technological advancements have also gone into digitizing finance. So in digitizing finance, we're now today going to look at what is this fair digital financing? How can we ensure that we comply with fair digital financing? What are the challenges that consumers are facing when they actually have issues with digital financing? What are we supposed to do when you're a victim of challenges around digital financing? So that is basically what we want to look at today. And then at the end of the day, we shall call to action for us consumers to always voice out our challenges around digital financing. And maybe to open it up, I would say that in the current world, almost everything is done digitally. So, for example, we have our monies in the banks, and you can easily withdraw your money, or you can deposit your money in the bank when you're actually in your bedroom or in your sitting room. So that is part of digital financing. You can have your money and move with it on your cell phone, that when you reach somewhere, then you can be able to to take it off your phone and make it cash. So in other words, you can run a cashless economy. You're not carrying huge monies, you're just carrying your phone and your money is in there. And the reality is that if you have money on mobile money, for example, and they steal your phone, you should be able to retrieve your money, because your money was not just put on the phone that was stolen, but is in a system of mobile money. And then currently, if you're paying school fees, especially for us in school, you can easily pay your money on your phone. You sit at home, but you pay your tuition, you pay your school fees. All this is part of digital financing. Now, it is solving so many problems. For example, you cannot see a group carrying huge monies, which were previously exposing people to a lot of theft. When they know that, for example, if the thugs know that you're carrying a bag of money, it was easy that they would follow you up, and then they grab the money from you and they take it. So digital financing comes to solve such challenges, that you cannot carry huge sums of money to put your life at risk of death or being stolen by unknown people. So your money, we could presume that in the digital era, your money can digitally be kept, and so you are safer from all these other challenges that come with carrying huge monies. But also, if you look at the banks, we used to go to the bank and you spend there 2-3 hours, you're waiting for a teller to withdraw 100,000, or maybe just about, let's say $100, and then you're at the bank for 2 hours. Currently, you can just, it's a click and the bank sends your money on your phone and you're able to get it where you are. All this is part of digital financing. What about insurance? Currently, you don't need to go to an insurance company to have access to, insurance services or whatever. You just need to deposit your money on your phone and you're able to access all those services. So when you look at the current era of digitalization, we cannot run away from digital financing. When you're at school, when you're at the bank, when you even transport these days, we pay on phone. In Uganda, we have different companies that are dealing with transport. So, for example, if you're using Uber or you're using Safe Border, you can be able to have money transferred to a person who is actually taking you to a station, and you wire your money. And if you look at us who travel abroad, you can be able to have your ticket when you're at your home and you're able to transact. All of these are very good options that we currently have to facilitate consumers have access to finances as quickly as possible. If you want a loan, you can also get a loan on your phone when you're seated at home and you're able to have a loan. All of these are packages that we discuss around the aspect of digital financing. Now, before we go a little bit further, now I wanted us to a little bit reflect on what we reflected on before. I want us to first a little bit reflect on the consumer rights. That when you are going to have access to these services, which are very good in nature, the way I have just opened up the issues of digital financing, of course, they have come to solve a challenge or problems and to make sure that consumers have quicker access to services. But we need to remember the consumer rights right at hand before we can undertake some of these innovations that come. For example, we have a right to safety. Now, we could keep asking ourselves, as a consumer, I have a right to safety. When I use a digital financing model, am I still maintaining that? Are the service providers actually taking into consideration the safety of the consumer? That when I'm going to deposit my money, is my money safe? How do I know my money is actually safe where I'm putting it? We have seen so many scams happening that someone has banked their money, but there's a lot of scamming that is happening. So what happens in that case? If I am me as a consumer, I have a right to safety. Are you cognizant of my safety at the time I'm using your service, you as a service provider of the digital finance? That could be something to reflect as a consumer. Number two, consumers have a right to information. You've come up with so many products on digital financing, but are the consumers aware of these services? Are they informed? What are the characteristics of your product? How do we access your product? How is it going to work? What advantage does it have over the others? Is that information locally available? Can the consumer, before actually they start using this service, are they well informed about it? So as a service provider who's trying to solve a problem of me, the consumer, you should put in perspective my right to information, that before I use your service, I must be well informed so that I can make a right decision to undertake that particular service that you want to offer to us. In many instances, the service providers will come up with services, but whenever they come up with services, the consumers are never alerted about the information they're supposed to have prior to making decisions. So if you look at the consumer right to information, are we protected? For example, if I gave you my information at the time of registering, let us say I'm registering for an online app, and I provide my details. I provide my name, my gender, my age, and my other personal details. How protected are my details? Are they not going to be used elsewhere? It is just like if I gave you a photocopy of my national ID or passport, and then tomorrow I find that you, the service provider, has actually printed it, and then I find it with the colleagues who are making chapati on the road, and you know, my ID that you have printed is being used for packaging material for someone's chapati, or for someone's bread, or for someone's popcorns. Are you giving us the information about the product and how you're going to protect the data that we are giving you? Are you able to give us more facts about our benefit of your service? That should be put into consideration before we take on some of these digital tools. The other example would be that if you go to the banks have created, for example, the ATM cards. So you can just walk in the ATM and you put your card and you're able to withdraw the money from the card. Unfortunately, most of these ATM cards, they have cameras. They have cameras, and meaning that these cameras are attached to a particular center, like the tele, something like a center where someone is controlling the online the cameras. So the camera center. Now the question is, when I go to that room, there is a camera seeing whatever I am doing. Now, isn't the person in the control room able to see my typings when I'm putting in my PIN, when I'm putting in my codes? So if that person is able to see and they have access to the system of the bank, how am I protected from them actually using the digits they have seen me put or using the camera and steal my money? So in terms of information, this has to come through that my information is well protected by the service provider so that I can be able to make transactions successfully. It comes back to the education, the right to education. Are you giving us the right education to your service? Sometimes when people want you to take on their service, they will talk all the good things about, and no one talks about the wrong things or the unexpected wrong things of the service. And this leaves many consumers at stake, that anytime we are worried that actually the information you're taking from us may be used for other things. That is one. But also we keep thinking that the moment you've not educated us thoroughly on these services, then it becomes a challenge to the consumer. So we have that right to acquire more knowledge and skills for us to be informed about the service that we are taking on. Now, when it comes to digital financing, are the service providers providing thorough education to us who are using these services? We have seen that these days you can buy internet, or you can buy data using your phone. Now, every time you're buying data using your phone, you cannot tell how many minutes do I consume 1 MB. Why? Because that is kept as a business secret. So nobody knows how much data you use per minute. But I have entrusted you with my money via your mobile money and I've paid my service, but I'm not able to have it. We have seen sometimes I pay for electricity and then I take long to receive a token, and so I remain in darkness amidst payment. Is the consumer educated on how are we supposed to be communicating with the service provider? Where is this awareness that when a token delays, please do this? That kind of education seems to be lacking, and this is affecting the utilization of the digital spaces. And also that brings us also to the right of redress. We have a right to redress, that whenever I have access to a service and the service does not meet the requirements, I should be able to bring it back and seek redress from the service provider. But the question is, how many consumers are aware of where to go for redress whenever they have a challenge? So if there is a right to redress, it means that I should be in position to be compensated in situations where there is misrepresentation, or maybe I have paid my money and has gotten lost. But the question is, how many times do the service providers in the digital financing, how often have they informed the consumers about this kind of redress? Or if someone comes for redress, how many times have we been heard? Besides, where are we supposed to go for redress? All this information is supposed to be provided to consumers before undertaking the service, before taking on the service. So sometimes we pay online, you pay water, you pay electricity, you pay your other bills, and then you realize that the receipts never come. And then someone asks, so how satisfactory are these services? And how do I redress? Where do I go? If it's an online loan and I've received an online loan, what about if I want to change the terms and conditions? How do I get it? So those basics have to come into play when we are discussing matters to do with digital financing. How do we make sure that our consumers, our service providers are held accountable to be able to compensate us in situations where they are giving us wrong services? Now, we have had other challenges with the digital financing. Let me use maybe an example of water. You know, these days they will send you a message that your meter, maybe the national water is demanding you, let's say, 20 units. But actually, when you go, if you're a serious consumer and you know your rights, when you go to your meter, it is reading something else. But you know you have transacted the money, and you realize that your meter reading is less than what they have actually charged you. Where do you go? Where do you report? Where do you run? So in terms of utilization of digital spaces, it is very good that helps consumers to solve some bit of challenges here and there, but we must adhere to the rights of the consumer. And maybe as I wind up this part, we need to ask ourselves, are consumers having enabling environment to actually access digital financing? Away from the rights, we have known that, okay, before I have this service, let me know the rights of a consumer, let the consumers know their rights, and let the service providers also respect the rights of the consumer. But here we have seen that, okay, do we still see, we still see a lot of digital financing divide, where some places, for example, have no internet. And you know, for example, you're going to pay school fees or tuition, and you have exams tomorrow. You have the money on your phone, and the network is not there. What do? The exam is tomorrow. Today you want to pay school fees, but there is no internet to pay. You go to the bank, you want to withdraw money, they tell you the network is down. So how do we improve the digital spaces to make sure that we achieve what they are intended to do? So in terms of enabling environment, you want to promote digital spaces, but the internet is costly. So how do consumers utilize the digital spaces amidst the high cost of internet, and yet they have to use internet to access the service? These are some of the things that we need to reflect on as we build a case for working on the digital spaces. What about away from internet? The internet can be there, but the network is not. What about the gadgets? Do people have the gadgets that have actually access to internet? Do people have smartphones? If they don't have smartphones, what is the cost of a smartphone in a country? How are we motivating consumers to actually utilize the digital spaces? How do we make sure that we regulate the digital space? Do we have the regulations in place? Do we have the appropriate laws in place? And if we have them, are consumers and service providers aware of them? It should be something that we need to think about. What about these increasing scams? How do we handle them at national level, at local level? If a person in the village has been cheated through a scam, what happens? Where are the regulations? What happens to the person who is traversing the scams? I mean, these are the things that I felt that we could open up with to help us internalize the subject of digital spaces, digital financing. How do we handle consumers' money? How do we deal with consumer rights as we are dealing with this subject? How does government come in to regulate us? And how do we ensure that digital financing makes sense to the consumers? Thank you so much. I think for now, that is the preamble of the subject that we are discussing. And over to you, colleagues. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much, Mr. Bwambale. You have given us a wide spectrum of issues we're going to be discussing. Digital financing is a big topic itself. And then consumerism is another big topic itself. So now we are fusing two issues here, two subjects here: consumerism and how it is factoring into digital financing, or how digital financing influences consumerism. These are different issues, but I am moving together into the discussion now to throw a bit of more light to our consumers, our viewers, wherever they are. Remember, I told you that most of our viewers are on Facebook. Most of our viewers are on Facebook. So when you talk about 6,000 viewers, 7,000 viewers, they are on Facebook. You won't find them on YouTube. But we're encouraging them to please also subscribe on our YouTube channel to be able to also see these shows after Facebook show. So we want to thank so much our team in Ghana, our team in Nigeria, Sierra Leone, Zambia, Zimbabwe, that are sharing our shows live, and of course our team in Uganda. Now, having said that, we look at two animals in the house. We look at consumerism, and then we look at digital financing. Now, consumerism, in a way, people are spending more money than what they have. People are spending more money on things they don't have. People, they don't need. You have them, but you don't. You want them, but you don't need. There's a difference between needing something and wanting something. Or people are spending money recklessly. Or digital financing comes in and then there is fraud. There are cases in Uganda, there are cases in Kenya, there are cases in Nigeria, there are cases all over Africa that I know, including in Europe, where people have been cheated through digital platforms. People are being enticed into pyramid schemes. And because the world is becoming a cashless economy, especially in Europe, it's easier to transfer your money from one space to another, one platform to another, because people no longer keep cash that much, especially in Europe. And now the scamming game is increasing. Of course, we've had stories in Nigeria. We have had stories in Uganda. People are being scammed. I was a victim of some of these scams through digital financing, or people using their digital platforms wrongly. Remember, if I did so, I would have shared with you how I lost money through fake emails. Someone sends you an email, and then you think you are talking to Kimera or Bambare, yet actually you are talking to XYZ. And then you end up sending money. You think you are sending it to Chimera, but basically you are sending it to Giorgio or another person, and in a different country. Now, that is through digital financing, because that is through a digital platform which you have little control about. We have heard about pyramid schemes in Uganda. People motivated to invest in companies that are going to give you money tomorrow. So it becomes quicker to spend what you have because someone is promising you a bigger return out of your investment. Now, this is a big thing, and I don't think we can actually finish it today. When you talk about services in Uganda, for example, talk about umeme, that is electricity, talk about water payments, talk about Uber services, talk about so many services where you are using your phone to buy these services. Sometimes you don't get what you are paying for. Talk about banks, where people are losing money. I was reading a story of Equity Bank, where someone lost millions of money in a day. And we are saying, look, the problem was yours because your password, your PIN code was given to a wrong audience. And the bank said, we have nothing to do with that. Yet this woman had banked her money for family. They had sold a property for family. She banks 45 millions, and then the next day, the money vanishes. And the bank says, it's not us. It is you. Your PIN code was given away. And the woman was saying, it is me who gave it to the manager because the manager accessed it. Now, digital financing, consumerism is a big thing. I want to throw this ball to Mr. Kimera. I know I've experienced so much of this fraud. Bambara have talked about our rights. We have rights, safety, privacy, information, data protection. How far are we having these rights protected as consumers in Uganda, in Africa? And you, as an organization, what advice are you going to give us on how to ensure that we stop this kind of fraud through digital financing? Over to you, Mr. Kimera.
Thank you very much, Bernard. Thank you very much, Paul and Dennis, colleagues. Like Paul, you have said, we are here with two elephants. And when those two elephants suffer consumerism and irresponsible digital finance, then the consumer will suffer. Like it is said, when two elephants fight, the grass suffers. But I would like to bring it that consumerism, there is a need and a want. And that want usually leads people to excessive consuming. They go in for even things that they don't want. But I would like to appreciate all Bernard has shared, all the observations you have shared. As consumers, we have lots of opportunities and lots of risks. If I would use Uganda as a case, it will reflect in many other countries globally. Digital finance will appreciate has helped to bring about financial inclusion. If I use the example in Uganda, some years back in 2009, by the time when it first came in here, we had got fewer formal accounts in banks. But with the increase or introduction of digital finance, as in, let's say, mobile money, to date, if we are to take that every SIM card is an account, we have now more than 30 million accounts. So where people are now in the money economy. So these opportunities are there, but they also have got risks, like the risks have been shared. using our rights. But these opportunities have gone into reduction in costs of doing business using the digital finance. They give us choices as a right to choice as consumers. We have a right to choice. But in the other times, there would be limited platforms for finance. But now there are many platforms from which you can choose and access the financial services through digital platforms. Then other aspects that come in as a benefit, we have access. So as we access all these different digital finances, it's very key that we make informed choice. And this is now why we are going to run a series of programs with regards to digital financial services that are going to take us for several months, touching bit by bit. It also provides us sustainability, where you can be, you easily access, and you are sustainable in many other accesses, and they provide us aspects that enable us to use these different tools, but with sustainability and other aspects with choice, access, and reduction in cost. One of the dangers it has brought in irresponsible borrowing, indebtedness. Many consumers are now indebted. I was joking, I sent a friend money some time back, and the money went into the account, but there and then, I didn't know the friend had got a loan, and the money was taken there and then, because that friend had not paid the monies he had borrowed, or from the digital platforms or the mobile money service providers. So all these opportunities have got risks, and that's why now we are coming in. We will be talking about consumer rights and also consumer responsibilities. Paul, you've talked of scams. This is where the consumer responsibility of being critically aware. What am I going into? Is it good or bad? So all these are aspects that we are going to discuss to make sure that when a product with regards to digital finances, you critically look at it for it to be fair to you and beneficial to you, to enable you to improve the quality of your life. But if we are not critical, we will end up being indebted. We will end up being in other countries, there are people who are committing suicide when their monies are stolen. I have ever watched a movie called Beekeeper, where an old lady, through scam and even in AI, lost all their savings of their credit cooperative. So these are aspects that are not only challenging in Africa, but they are global challenges which need global requirements, global frameworks that come down to national, coming down to even households. The aspects Bernard talked about, awareness. So we need to do all these things to make sure that the risks that we are faced with are addressed. And all this brings in our number one digital finance governance. Whom does it start with? It starts with government, or it starts with the duty bearers. In countries, it will be Minister of Finance, it will be the central bank, it will be other ombudsmen that are playing a role to protect consumers and also protect businesses. So all these are issues that we are going to be discussing. How do we get fair digital finance, given its opportunity and all those beautiful things, once consumers access it, how best they are going to benefit from it. We need quality infrastructure. Bernard talked about just imagine you are paying a hospital bill and then there is no network. And that bill or the monies you are sending are urgent to conduct that it is a matter of life and death. So this is where through duty bearers, as in government, ministries, departments, and agencies, making sure that there is quality infrastructure, quality digital finance regulations or frameworks that will make sure that they meet the consumer needs. Then also looking into how do we look at protecting consumers from indebtedness, from scams. All these are aspects that are required to create or strengthening the consumer protection regimes in our countries to safeguard consumers from the vagaries of the unscrupulous. There are consumers who wake up to go and work very hard to earn money, but then there are those irresponsible consumers who are seated scheming, scamming to take that hard-earned money. So it is very key that aspects that elements that we were discussing in food safety to make how safe our food should be are nearly the same aspects that we need to discuss bringing into digital finance. As in food safety, where we require quality infrastructure to produce quality food that is safe, healthy, and nutritious, even in digital finance, we will need to have quality infrastructure that will provide safe, quality digital financial services. And all these are guaranteed by the duty bearers. So those regulations and frameworks will bring a healthy environment, increase inclusivity, deepen the financial services, even to the vulnerable. Looking at most of these aspects, we think, or we might find that the frameworks are put there, but issues to do with digital finance will bring in innovation, will lead to inclusivity. Now, there will be those that are vulnerable, then the service providers will need to get in touch with innovators to come up with those services that will facilitate those, let's say, the blind, the physically impaired, or the visually impaired, so that they can also be included and also deepening the financial services. It's going to be very key that the providers themselves get to understand and safeguard. Paul, the lady you're talking of, who lost over 45 million shillings in the bank due to a PIN, but all these we need to have responsible service providers where they are frameworks protecting them. All these are going to be aspects that we'll be discussing series by series to make sure that, Paul, you became a victim. I was also a victim. Losing money, putting in my PIN code, and somebody says, no, your PIN code, money hasn't come. Do it again. Okay, restart your phone. As I restarted my phone, checking, the money was gone. I'd say, but I did nothing to you. You didn't give me it is your phone that failed to deliver the message. But I had lost the money. I couldn't, at times you ask yourself, if I am knowledgeable and they can scam me, then what of the millions that are not knowledgeable? So these are discussions that we would like to have to all of you, our viewers, that we need to be critical aware so that in this fast growing world we are in, with technologies now being the life deciders, people can play with your voice and call one of your relatives, and you think you're talking to your relatives, whereas it is artificial intelligence. So all these aspects that we are going to be discussing during this series are going to be wide, cross-cutting, but when they are talking to every aspect of humanity. So
Thank you so much.
it will be key for us all to continuously come in and we discuss. We will be bringing out some of the aspects. Many countries, like Bernard was saying, have got digital finance regulations that are consumer protection. But you'll find that how are they implemented? Interestingly, like I've just been telling you of my story, even the regulators, as individuals in their individual capacity as consumers, they're also scammed. So then it is like one would think a doctor can't fall sick or the doctor can't fail to get treatment. So this is the same thing. That is why it is important that now we discuss some of these things so that we contribute to improving the consumer life, and so that consumers do not become victims, but also for consumers to be responsible. The access to easy money through digital finance is making consumers indebted and making consumers live an irresponsible life. We can go on and on and on, but we thought that this could be a good catalyzer whereby we will be talking about how these opportunities are, how the risks are, where we need to have it safe, how inclusive it is, and the call to action. We will be bringing in the different frameworks, and we collect consumer complaints. Our research and knowledge management team, most of the complaint about services are communication in general, but in particular digital finance, and major aspects there, it is fraud, aspects of poor network as they are picking up money or they are sending money. And we will be breaking all this down for all our viewers. Wherever you are, there is a thing also we can learn from each other. So it will be also, I could appeal to you that as you watch the series on Facebook, don't fail to send in your commentaries, questions, so that, yeah, very good. That is consumer responsibility of taking action. So take action, report these to the regulators, but also write to us, and you bring in aspects that we need to, I will say, let's say questions or observations, so that in the coming series, we are starting towards the end of July, we are going to go through August, we will be going through September and October discussing this subject, the way we have been discussing food safety right from January to until last Saturday. But now we are going to talk about digital finance. I was telling colleagues the other day, just imagine you invert a pyramid of human issues. And when you invert the pyramid, you'll find that all aspects are tending to be with finance. But when the economy is turning kind of cashless, we need to take action and make sure that the digital finance as a foundation for many of our transactions is fair, is safe, and is of good quality. And usually what we use in food, we are also going to use it here. If it is not safe, it is not fair digital finance. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much, Mr. Kimera. That was a good one. Thank you so much. Thank you so much for the empowerment you have given us, of course, the education, and of course, the knowledge that you continue to share with us. You have talked about issues that affect us. For example, indebtedness is increasing worldwide. People have debts that they shouldn't have because digital platforms are making it easier to borrow money. I should tell you, in Uganda, it is easier to borrow airtime or get airtime on credit, if I can use that. It is easier because they even ask you, do you want to get a loan? Do you want to get airtime and you pay later? Now, either it's a trap to keep you hooked on their platform, or it's something calculated to keep you paying and paying and paying and hooked on the system. Now, that is consumerism. Imagine that someone tells you, don't worry, I can give you data for 10,000 and you pay later. Now, that is consumerism you're bringing because we are making it easier to achieve this service. But the question is, how am I going to pay back? Because now my debt is increasing. My debt is increasing every day. I never had a debt. So we go into a cashless economy, but also a debt economy. We are indebted. We have school loan. You have a house loan, a mortgage. Now you also have data loan. You also have, it makes it easier to get broke, to be indebted. You talked about other issues, and I'm going to beg and request that in the next shows, maybe you can now look at one aspect and say banking sector. Let us look at consumerism and the fraud in this banking sector. Maybe you can also get people with testimonies. I want to encourage our viewers, wherever you are watching us on Facebook, especially because we are watching more on Facebook. Please send us your comments, send us your scenarios, your experiences. You shall come here and read them. Tell us, how were you scammed by your bank, by your mobile provider, by your pyramid arrangement, whatever it was, Now, phone companies are also scamming us, or scamming us, as of course Bernard put it. They are always coming up with schemes that are enticing, but also getting money from you. Banks, for example. How many of us, Mr. Kimera and Mr. Bambale, mind when you check your balance and 50 shillings is missing? How many of us would even mind if 100 shillings is missing? Because they will give you a point. Now, what happens if a bank takes on 200 shillings from 1 million accounts? What would happen? That is fraud. But how many of us basically fraud it through and ask that we're taking bankages, but also this one has gone? How many of us look at how auditing and the auditors steal openly in broad daylight and none of us actually follow? Because that's a consumer right. Now, these are issues I want us to look at in our next series. And I want to invite Mr. Wambale to highlight more of what has been said, and then, of course, give us a way forward as we move towards the next topic. We have 12 minutes to go. We are going to share them. 5 for you, Mr. Bambale, and of course, 4 minutes for Mr. Kimera to wind up. Thank you so much. Bambale, back to you.
Okay, thank you, colleagues, for the discussions. One critical thing I want you to imagine, or I don't know if you've ever imagined, why the banks will always have a very long document whenever they are giving loans. And what is required on that is actually signature. So many of us, especially the consumers, you only go where the signature issue is. And you know how they do it. They mark for you where to sign. So you only see the banker putting for you those lines and says, oh, no, sign here, sign there, sign there. And many times people just append because they don't know the provisions in there. Why that is so is because there are so many things that are in that agreement, but they are there for general happiness, but really not to support the consumer. And that is why many consumers even receive loans without even knowing the interest rate. But for them, they just sign because I mean that is it. You just sign here and you sign there and you move on. Now, those are some of the ways that consumers are being cheated. Actually, in principle, every time you're getting a loan from the bank or whatever, you're supposed to read the terms of reference together with the teller so that you understand those details. Why should my mother, who doesn't understand English, sign a form written in English, but they just put a thumbprint? So these are aspects that we're supposed to be talking about around digital financing, and also, you know, the usage of the banking system and maybe the mobile money issues and all that. But also we need to be careful on the charges. How are the charges determined? If, for example, you're saying a loan is at 20% or 15% or 30, what is stimulating the charge? Why is the charge at 20? Me as the consumer, I am supposed to be knowing why I'm paying 20% interest of the money you are giving. But many times they say, okay, your interest rate is 10, 20, 30 or whatever percentage, but the consumer down there, they are in need of money and they do not know what that percentage actually means. So for them, as long as they have signed where to put the money, because you have hidden information from them, then they go and fail to actually pay the money. They should be able to pay the money, but they fail to pay the interest. That's why you see that now when someone is paying interest, the money tends to be more than what you borrowed and extremely higher. So the people are failing to pay interest because they were not informed at the time of getting the loan. The other issue is about, you see, I have always said this, and I always wish that the duty bearers and the policymakers hear it. The problem we have in our African countries is that we have very good laws, very good policies, and etc. Many people have claimed that we have them, but they are never implemented. I want to say that they are not implemented just because of one reason. The reason is that the consumers for whom the regulations were made to protect are not aware of the regulation. So how do you implement what people don't know? You would even find that you can go to parliaments of these African states, whichever states, and you get surprised that even the policy makers in those parliaments do not actually know the policies around some of these things. So if the regulator does not understand the policy or the regulation, and they don't communicate the regulation to the consumer for which the law or the policy was made to protect, how do you expect it to be implemented? You cannot implement what you don't know. So the person who knows it is perhaps the person who drafted it, but the people for whom these were made, they don't know. So how shall we implement what we actually don't know is an issue. Many of us register for mobile money. Many of us register for these digital financing models. But how many of us are aware of the regulations or policies in place that support digital financing in our different countries? So if we do not know them, it means we are working without knowledge, and so we cannot demand what we don't know. People don't know that when you are cheated, this is what happens. When you're supposed to do, this is what you're supposed to do. They don't know the law, and so it is tricky for people to actually implement what we actually don't know. Imagine the disabled. Someone does not see, someone does not speak, someone does not, the physically impaired people. They are taking loans from the phone, but how do they get those loans from the phone? They have not read the details. How are they supported? How? So all of these aspects are supposed to be reflected on for us to come up with a clear justification for certain things. So as I wind up, I would implore again governance issues here. The governments, the leaders must come in play. First of all, design appropriate policy frameworks, but also ensure that the communities for which they have been made are able to understand them. They sensitize them. They even localize them so that people can quickly demand. Actually, in Africa, we don't demand because we do not know what to demand for. So you cannot demand for what you don't know. What am I supposed to demand for when I don't know it? And that is where our leaders have succeeded. Make a constitution which the other members of the country do not know. So, for example, in Uganda, we have a constitution 1995, but if you ask, it is mandatory according to the law that is supposed to be translated. But now this is how many years down the road, no translation. It is another logic that consumers should not know what is in the constitution so that you can always, they don't demand. If all Ugandans knew what was in the constitution or in a particular law or in a regulation or in a policy, people would be demanding. But now, what do we demand for when we don't know it? So I request that government takes it on. Our regulators sensitize our people. Let us reach out to our people. Let us communicate to our people. Let us educate them about these services. Let us take them through where to redress from, so that people understand the services and they're able to use them. So I think those are my closing remarks, and I hope we shall be in touch again next week so that we are able to continually learn and also pick ideas here and there, and implore our consumers to be responsible consumers. Please don't take what you don't understand. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much, Mr. Bambale Bernard. That was a good one. You have reminded me, when you go to a bank and you want to get a loan or you're opening up an account, they're going to give you conditions and warranty. How many of us read them? By the way, they are always written in very small letters, if you've ever taken time to read them. And I always printed at the back, very small letters, which means people with bad eyesight may not be able to read them. But also, they are put so close with one another. You know, the lines are so close because they're trying to minimize space, but are hardly readable. Yet you are making a contract with a bank. But how many of us? You said it better, Mr. Bernard, that actually they are trapping you. And they will always tell you, manager, sign here, sign here, sign here. Now, that is fraud in the first place. That is fraud taking place in broad daylight in a bank. But either because people don't know their rights, or they are less educated about it, or they are not concerned, they're not going into this. This is where we need consumer right activists to educate people, so that before I pen my signature, I know exactly what I'm signing, what I'm going to. Thank you so much, Bernard. Mr. Kimera, give us your parting shot as we look forward to our next show.
Sorry, Kato. Before Mr. Chimera, there is one common thing. Currently, the organizations, the civil society organizations have taken on the digital financing model. That if you go, for example, for a meeting with a civil society organization, they will tell you, okay, so we shall send you the money on mobile money. Please register your number that is registered in mobile money and all that. And now consumers go ahead to sign for money before it comes, because it is an accountability thing. You have to sign that, okay, we send the money. But you can imagine if a meeting is on Monday and you're going to be paid after 2 weeks, a consumer has already signed that they have received the money before the money comes. All of this is part of fraud, but there's no consumer questioning or asking. So all of those are okay. I think we can get back to Mr. Chimera.
Thank you so much. That is fraud completely, because there's no way I can sign for monies I haven't received. And legally, once you sign, you have received it. I mean, that is fraud. That is broad robbery. But people are going to sign because they're desperate. And thank you so much for that example. It's very live and telling, because once you sign, it means you have accepted receipt of the money. So as consumer rights activists, I do think this is our right. This is our task. This is our task as the leaders, to continue educating our people about this. Do not sign before getting the money. Simple and clear. But someone's going to convince you, please sign. You see. No, the moment you sign, it means you have received it. Mr. Kimera, that is a good one. Let us have your parting shot.
Yeah, thank you very much. It was a good curtain riser for us all. And colleagues, our parting shot is, come join us. Let's talk about what is making us who we are today, because digital financial services are in-house of every aspect that we're dealing with in life in one way or another. So let's join hands, come in every Saturday for 1 hour, and whatever you get to learn here as a responsible consumer, in solidarity, take action. But let's be critical aware of the things that we access, and let's make informed decisions. Let's get the duty bearers to protect us as we also endeavor to protect ourselves. So we look forward to once again joining you. I would like to thank Paul, Dennis, and all the Humanist TV colleagues, wherever you are, our viewers. Humanist TV, thank you for the partnership, and let's continue sensitizing consumers to add a quality of life in their daily life. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Chimera, so much. And of course, I'm happy seeing the background of your studio concept. I've always seen that for the last 20 years. I mean, it's a great one, Consent. You can see Mr. Chimera right there, the leader of Consent Uganda. And of course, the background speaks volume about the work they do. We are grateful to have Mr. Bernard Bwambale in the studio. And of course, to the viewers watching us, especially on Facebook, please continue sharing, but also do not forget to subscribe on our YouTube channel, and of course encourage everyone to subscribe to be able to see this and more of our shows. It has been today in the studio, today me and Dennis Bongole, and of course Mr. Kimera and Mr. Bambale in the studio. Thank you so much for watching. See you in the next show. Bye-bye.
Yeah.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
Nice
Bye-bye.
weekend to you all. Cheers.
Thank you.